It started like any other missing person case. A husband, Charles Singer, was gone, no calls, no goodbyes, just vanished into thin air. His wife, Dorothy Singer, had an answer for everything. He left after an argument, she told police. He was using drugs. He didn't treat me right. Simple, right? Case closed. But here's where things get strange. Charles's sister, Lori, wasn't buying it. Her brother had never been one to just disappear, especially not without a word. And then, there were the text messages that didn't sound like him. Charles was legally blind. He never texted. So who was really behind that screen? More time passed, and Dorothy stuck to her story. No Charles. No answers. Just excuses. But here's the thing about lies, they crack under pressure. Police started digging. And what they found made Dorothy's story crumble faster than a house of cards. Someone had been using Charles's bank account, withdrawing cash, making purchases. But if Charles was gone, who was spending his money? Detectives went back to Dorothy. She fumbled. She contradicted herself. But she still wouldn't budge. So, let me ask you, what do you think happened here? Was Charles really out there somewhere, hiding? Or was something much darker at play? Stay with me, because this story is about to take a chilling turn. At this point, police knew something was off. A missing husband. A wife caught in a web of contradictions. A bank account being drained by someone who wasn't supposed to be there. So, they did what needed to be done. They got a warrant. The morning of the search, officers surrounded Dorothy's home. Knocking turned into pounding. Then, a voice over the intercom, Flagler County Sheriff's Office. Open the door. Nothing. The silence stretched long enough to make everyone uneasy. And then, movement. The door creaked open. And there stood Dorothy, eyes wide, body tense. The house was a mess, papers scattered, furniture out of place, and unease lingering in the air. But it wasn't what was inside the house that mattered most. It was what was waiting outside. A few days earlier, Detective Conrad had walked the property with Dorothy. She had been tense, nervous, almost jittery. But the moment they reached the back of the yard, near the woods, she wanted to turn around. And that's when they saw it. A tarp. A boat. And something hidden beneath the branches. The officers moved in. And what they found? It would break this case wide open. Stay with me, because the truth is finally coming to the surface. The officers knew they were onto something. The way Dorothy had acted when they neared the woods, the strategically placed tarp, the carefully stacked branches, none of it felt right. Detective Conrad took a breath, stepping closer to the suspicious area. We need to move this carefully, she instructed her team. The first branch was lifted. Then another. The closer they got, the more they could see, a camouflage tarp, thick and heavy, draped over something large. What was underneath? Dorothy stood in the distance, watching. Her face was pale, her hands shaking. She knew. She had always known. With careful precision, officers pulled at the tarp, revealing what lay beneath. And there, wrapped tightly in bedding and more layers of tarp, was a body. The scene fell silent. The stench of decay filled the air. Even the most seasoned officers took a step back. They had found him. Charles Singer had never left. His body, tied with white twine, showed clear signs of trauma. A small hole in the skull. A fractured jaw. His remains had been concealed for months, left in the backyard while Dorothy carried on as if nothing had happened. How could she have done this? How could she have fooled everyone for so long? The weight of the discovery hit hard. This wasn't just a missing persons case anymore. This was murder. And Dorothy? She had nowhere left to run. But the biggest question remained: what really happened that night? Stay with me, because the truth is darker than you can imagine. Dorothy Singer had been lying for months. She had pretended to be a worried wife. She had sent fake text messages, drained Charles's bank account, even made up excuses to his family. But now, standing outside her home as officers uncovered his body, she knew the act was over. They placed her in the back of a patrol car. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there, staring ahead. Then came the interrogation. "Dorothy, we know what happened." At first, she denied it. But the evidence was overwhelming. Then, she changed her story. She and Charles had been fighting. He was using drugs. He was violent. One night, things got out of control. There was a struggle. The gun went off. Once. Twice. No, Dorothy kept firing until the gun clicked empty. When it was over, she panicked. She wrapped his body. She dragged it outside. She covered it with a tarp. And then, she went on with her life. She thought she could get away with it. But no one can outrun the truth forever. Dorothy Singer was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. But here's the real question: was it truly self-defense? Or was this something much colder, much more calculated? I want to hear what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And stay with me, because her final day in court is next. The courtroom was silent. Dorothy Singer sat at the defense table, her face expressionless. The weight of what she had done, the months of deception, the lies, the cover-up, it all led to this moment. The prosecution didn't hold back. They laid out every chilling detail for the jury. The fake text messages. The withdrawals from Charles's bank account. The gunshots. The tarp. The backyard grave. There was no escaping the truth. But Dorothy's defense team had one last card to play: self-defense. Her lawyers painted a picture of a battered wife, a woman who lived in fear of her husband. They described Charles as violent, a drug user, a man who had allegedly abused Dorothy for years. Was this the truth? Or just another lie? The jury listened carefully. They examined the crime scene photos, the financial records, the text messages that Dorothy had sent in Charles's name. And then, there was her confession. She had admitted it. She pulled the trigger. She kept shooting until there were no more bullets left. The prosecution called it murder. Cold. Calculated. Premeditated. And the jury agreed. Dorothy Singer was found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge didn't hesitate. Life in prison. No chance of parole. As the verdict was read, Dorothy barely reacted. She had spent so many months crafting a lie, maybe, in her mind, she had started to believe it. But justice doesn't bend to lies. Charles Singer was finally given the justice he deserved. And Dorothy? She would spend the rest of her life in a prison cell, just as trapped as the secret she had tried to bury. What do you think? Did Dorothy act out of fear? Or was this all part of a twisted plan? Let me know in the comments. And stay tuned, because the fallout from this case is just as shocking. Even after the trial, the case of Dorothy Singer left a lasting impact. Neighbors couldn't believe what had happened right under their noses. Charles's family struggled with the reality of his brutal death. But there was one more chilling detail: Dorothy had almost gotten away with it. If not for Laurie's persistence, if not for the strange text messages, if not for the suspicious withdrawals, would Charles have ever been found? It makes you wonder, how many secrets like this are still out there, buried just beneath the surface? What do you think? Could this have been avoided? At the heart of this case lies a devastating truth: no matter how well someone tries to cover up their actions, the past always finds a way to resurface. Dorothy Singer believed she could manipulate the truth, fool her family, fool the police, and ultimately walk away from what she had done. But justice doesn't work that way. Lies unravel, secrets get exposed, and the truth always has the final word. This case also reminds us of the importance of paying attention to the people around us. If Lori hadn't pushed for answers, if she had simply accepted Dorothy's story, Charles's fate might have never been discovered. It's a stark reminder that when something feels off, we should trust our instincts and ask questions. But most importantly, this story sheds light on the devastating consequences of domestic conflict. If you or someone you know is struggling in a dangerous or toxic situation, don't wait. Seek help. There are resources, hotlines, and people who care. No one should have to live in fear, and no one should ever believe that violence is the answer. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you believe Dorothy was truly a victim, or was this a carefully planned crime? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're fascinated by real-life mysteries and cases like this one, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Because the truth is out there, and together, we'll uncover it.